All right, we are live. I guess after some minor technical difficulties in this new office slash studio, I had this great setup and I can't use it. I had to go back to my old school setup, but nevertheless, this is going to be a fantastic podcast. Before we get into it, just say welcome to Channel CEO Podcast, brought to you by the MSP M&A Grow Show. This isn't your typical snooze fest conference. This is where MSP owners and execs ready to make serious moves come to learn the ins and outs of getting acquired, scaling up, and dominating the M&A game. M&A game. Almost said MSP M&A game. You'll get straight talk from the top minds in the industry, plus killer networking, one-on-one matchmaking sessions to help boost your sales and profitability. The next stop is in Newark, New Jersey, October 24th. I know we have one after that down in the great state of Texas, another one down in Dallas. So don't sleep on it. The space is limited. We're getting registrations out the wazoo at the moment. So definitely jump on that. We'll have a link in the show notes. There's a link, I think, on the homepage of channelprogram.com. So definitely check that out. All right, now switching gears. I'm going to bring on our two guests this week, David Sohn and Matthew Pincus, co-founders of Helpt. And so let me bring to the stage David and Matthew. Gentlemen.
Hey, hello.
Hello, good day.
Is this the first time you've gotten a tag team?
This is, I think, the first co-founder Channel CEO podcast. So this is a first for everything. This is great.
Awesome.
I'm sure this is going to be a really fascinating conversation because, having founded businesses with multiple co-founders, and this one today has two co-founders. I understand some of the dynamics, but I'm sure dynamics are often different between different founders and groups. And so definitely looking forward to this. So thank you both for joining me here. So
thanks.
So let's get back. Let's take a step back. Let's hear the origin story. Let's hear how you guys first kind of met. What was the context? What were you guys doing? And we'll get into what led to going down this path of Helpt. So who wants to start?
So I'll start with how we first met. It was actually at a softball game. I just happened to move to Orange County, where we are now, and I did a Google search for softball, leagues or whatever it might be. And I showed up to this field and I started playing softball. I had a great time. And this dude was just a madman out there in the outfield. And he was running after this ball, and somebody was running after the ball going from the opposite direction, and they collided. This big collision. Guy gets hit in the head. He's concussed, falling all over the place, has to go off to the hospital. Turned out that was Matt. Somebody needed to drive his car home.
In the same sense.
So I ended up volunteering to be the one that, drove, met him in the hospital, made sure he was all right, and then got him into his car and back to his house. So that's how we met.
On the softball field, huh? That's awesome. So
yeah,
is this uber competitive, or is this kind of a fun beer league, or is this one of these competitive, go the distance type leagues?
It was an old man league, so it wasn't all that competitive. The team that we were on was trying to get a little more competitive. That's how I ended up on the team, is that one of the guys on the team had his son on the team, and his son went to high school with a buddy of mine and was enlisted to find more young athletic people to join the team. So, he got his 20-something son's friend and his friend's friends, and I was one of the friend's friends. So that's how I ended up on the team. And we became more competitive, but I don't think we were anywhere near the top of the standings in that league.
That's a good. I mean, that's a good story. That's meeting out in the softball field. So from there, right? So you got this uber, I don't know, aggressive outfielder. You gets injured. You get the car. You help him out, and then. How do you guys go down? What was the next kind of next step of the journey?
We became friends, and we were both working, totally different jobs, different industries. I was doing some technical recruiting. Matt was doing some, what would you call it, Matt? The distribution management at the time,
Sure.
Product management, stuff like that. And we were just buddies for 3 or 4 years, and then it came to be that I was looking for a job. And I said, hey, Matt, you know anybody? He says, actually, we could use you. He said, great. Same way I got drafted onto the softball field, I got drafted into the organization that Matt was working for. And we worked together for about 10 years, grew the ranks independently in different areas of the organization. Matt went off to the UK to be the managing director of, that segment, built that up from $6 million to $100 million a year in revenue, some crazy numbers, just as aggressive, in the business field as he was on the softball field. And we had the opportunity to come together and build something. And so we, had a meeting and we said, hey, what are the things that the business world needs? And one of the things that I was trying to find was what Helpt has now become.
Awesome. So you kind of meeting the minds, I guess at this previous organization, and like many entrepreneurial journeys, they start with trying to solve a need, trying to solve a problem, and that's particularly prevalent, not just in tech, but certainly in the MSP space, because you often hear often it's a founder or maybe somebody on the support desk, help desk, that's just trying to solve this pain point, this damn thing that they can't solve, and they get this, whether it's they're moonlighting or they just take the step off the ledge completely and they go out and try to solve these big challenges. And it kind of sounds like that's the path that you guys went down. It's like, all right, you're struggling in a certain area, and it's like you're not getting the right resources or finding the right help at that point. And then so that kind of starts that journey, it sounds like.
That's the real origin story. While I was over managing our European business, David was our global VP of technical services. His job was to make sure that somebody would pick up the phone and help the customer that was calling. And we were in the fiber optic hardware space. So the customer that was calling was a Verizon, a Comcast, a Charter. It was somebody who, if they were calling, it meant that there were tens, hundreds, maybe thousands of people that didn't have TV, internet. So it was, not an emergency, but it was kind of an emergency to a lot of people. So it was important that we always be there for our customers. And we appreciated the urgency of that. They appreciated our urgency. That's why we were so successful as a business. But man, was it hard to actually be there 24/7. You couldn't staff, heavily for 2 a.m. on a Saturday night because you're going to take a call every 6 months. You couldn't have, somebody sitting in a chair waiting to take that call when it was never coming in. But when it came in, you needed to be there. And we recognized that this was a problem that we needed to solve. And David explored a lot of different ways to try to solve that problem that once even led to him having to take a call from a casino floor in Vegas. That was kind of a support call gone wrong. But yeah, exactly to your point, is we realized that this was incredibly challenging and it didn't need to be. There was a better way to do it. We don't think what we're doing is the most inventive thing. We're not creating some brand new market, some brand new industry. We saw all the struggles of businesses operating in a similar space and said, it doesn't have to be this hard. This is a need that we had. This is a need that we know a lot of businesses have. We can solve that need a lot easier than the rest of the businesses in the space are.
So when you identify that there's this, massive challenge that it's, whether it's, it's universal, right? I mean, it's not just, that specific organization. It's, every business, struggles with this. When you guys come together and start thinking, all right, maybe it's whiteboarding or maybe because you guys are on two different sides of the earth at that point, when you're starting to put this together, what were you trying to accomplish early on? And did you have roles and responsibilities? Was it natural, I guess, when you started that, hey, Dave's going to go down this path, Matthew's going to go down this path, and, play to those strengths? I mean, how challenging was that early on? Just taking a step off the ledge and then kind of, figuring it out as you go.
Man, I'd say it's been wildly challenging. I guess the benefit is that Matt and I do have such a strong relationship. What happens is that we have this weird melding of our minds that goes on where we think that the other person has done the thing that we thought we needed to do. And so we're constantly in a situation where it's like, wait, we talked about it. I thought you were going to do that. And you go, oh, no, I thought you were going to do that. And so we have been spending a lot of time defining those roles, defining those responsibilities, making sure that, even though we think we know what's going on between our two brains, that we really align those things. So it's been challenging, but we're working through it pretty well.
In day one, I would say it wasn't that challenging just because there was so much to do that, when we got our first client, we were the ones taking the calls. As we started to grow, that was where the challenge really came in, is because as we grew, we wanted to be able to delegate. We wanted to be able to have a team achieve the things that we needed to achieve. And we needed to find a way to define our own roles in the process. And that's where it really became hard. As we went from the two of us to that third person in the organization, suddenly we needed to tell that third person what our jobs were. And that was just a new challenge for us.
Yeah, because early on, I imagine you're dealing with, just like any startup, right? You got this great idea, you're focused on the idea and how you get that idea off the ground, but then, day one, you're like, oh, well, there's this thing called payroll. And then there's QuickBooks and getting a business account and, kind of that, kind of the operational side, but then there's also some of the tactical stuff. Was that, is that clearly defined, or is that kind of just figure it out as you go? This thing pops up, oh, we got to do this, you take it or I'll take it, I guess, assuming that's how it kind of played out.
One strength that we have is our strong belief in the value of outsourcing. Obviously, that's why we do what we do. And that has helped to address things. There still needs to be a point person. There still needs to be somebody managing that outsource relationship. But there are a lot of elements where we are able to say, hey, you could do this thing, I could do this thing. Neither of us are experts. And we want this thing done, not 70% right. We could do a pretty good job, but we want this perfect. We want to have high standards for our organization. We need this done right. Let's find somebody who can do a great job at this. And that's, been the case as we bring in contractors, partners to help us with the things we need to do. And also when we bring in employees, we're trying to bring in people who have strengths where we have weaknesses, which help us define our roles, because then we have experts to do the things that we can't do so well.
And Kevin, I'm smiling like a maniac over here because I have a confession to make. We have the book, start up in 7 days. And first day we sat down in our office together, we started filling that thing out. And we go back to that book every couple months. Like, hey, these are the things that we saw on the checklist that we needed to take care of. And we are, or we aren't, but we constantly are looking at that to make sure that we're, on a path that's been set before us.
That actually speaks volumes, because I think it's very rare for, you often think of entrepreneurship, or kind of the persona or the personality as it's very maybe I'm stereotyping, maybe I'm more speaking to myself as well, but it's more often disorganized. It's chaotic to start, and and then you hear all the cliches like there's not a blueprint or what have you, but in this case, like, you guys followed essentially a blueprint, and that's been very helpful for you guys early on.
Yeah, and I think that it's that nutty professor thing. And believe it or not, even though Matt was the madman on the field and in the business sense, I'm kind of the nutty professor type. I think I'm a 0 to 1 person. I go from 0, go crazy wild things, and then we get to 1. Matt's the pragmatic, organized, detailed, hey, let's make sure that we're methodical about this person. And because of that, we're on the show together, because it works like that.
And that's huge. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's going to 0 to 1. It's a time management thing. When we were getting started, we knew how to do the things we wanted to do in supporting customers, but we didn't know how to have a business. Like you said, Kevin, payroll, that's not something we had to deal with. Like all those HR aspects, the finance, I'd managed a P&L before, but I hadn't been the one responsible for actually building all of the spreadsheets that are feeding that P&L and creating that budget. I had my finance team that would take what I said and put it down in a nice spreadsheet for me. So it's all of figuring out how to do that while we're still giving ourselves enough hours in the day to actually have the business. That was the biggest challenge.
Yeah. So like you said early on, right? You gotta open the doors, and then you guys pretty quickly got your first customer. I guess within what, a month or two, I guess, from launch, you guys were, open for business, and you get this first customer. What was that like?
It was terrifying. I guess I'm being too transparent. I should probably stop that. It was terrifying, but it came off the back of a referral. So one of the folks that were on the team with me, he said, hey, what are you up to these days? And I told him what we were doing. And he said, hey, great, I've got somebody that needs to talk to you. And that referral was to, our first MSP client. And we kind of went down the path with them of what we could and couldn't do. And we've built a relationship with them over the last 2 years, still a client.
That's awesome. So So let's get into, Helpt in really the challenge that you guys are solving. And, I do want to talk, something, a little bit about culture and then kind of this distributed kind of work environment. But so give us the quick pitch on Helpt. What are you guys doing?
Delivering an excellent customer experience.
I was waiting for who's going to speak first. So there you go. Yeah.
One of the reasons that we really succeeded at the last business, our differentiator, was the customer service that we delivered. Customer, technical, pre-sales, post-sale, whatever it was, we made our customers' lives easier. And so they wanted to work with us. And we want to be delivering that at scale to really, you talk about the challenges of scale. Day one, when we sat down, it was actually in a coffee shop when we first started. Who's our ICP? Well, it's every business, because every business has customers. Obviously, we narrow that down a little bit, but the reality is that anyone that's dealing with their customers, we want to empower them to create an excellent customer experience so that they get those same sort of referrals that we got. We want to create evangelists on behalf of our clients, because that's what's going to help them grow. And while we're doing that, we're helping them save some money. We're helping them be efficient. We're helping, a smaller MSP that doesn't have too many texts, no longer needs to have their text distracted by a simple password reset. So we are making the customers extraordinarily happy to be able to get a human whenever they need help. And we're keeping our clients happy by making sure that they don't have to deal with yet another broken printer.
Yeah. We called ourselves fractional support for a long time. The idea was, hey, you don't need to hire a full headcount. You can just bolt us on, because that was exactly what we needed at the last gig so that we could make sure we covered that 24/7 cycle. But now, as we're evolving, we're realizing that, we're delivering customer experience. We're on the front lines for a lot of our clients, and we're the first voice that somebody hears, or we're the first interaction that somebody might have for a support issue. And so it's evolving, but hopefully that was clear enough with what we do.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then, I think to your point, that is the hallmark of any, especially when you're looking about fractional or outsourced or, remote support, that first call, that first interaction or experience is, that makes or breaks the relationship, not just with that MSP's customer or your customer's customer, but obviously you and the MSP, right? Because you're a reflection of that MSP, you're a reflection of their business. You have to adopt the way that they do business, the way they speak, the way they, want to project themselves as an organization, and then imagine, I'm kind of thinking through, how you would onboard an MSP and how do you adopt, their ethos? How do you adopt their way of doing business? And I'm sure you guys have that baked into the process.
Yeah. We've got a pretty in-depth onboarding process. So we've got a couple of different offerings. One of them is where we're just, kind of technical live answer. We're on the front end, we're picking up the phone, we're triaging, we're using ITIL methodology, we're applying a priority, and we're sending in a ticket. That one, we still want to know a lot about you so that we can, like you said, represent as, our client. But that one's a little bit easier. It's a little faster. The other one, where we are the embedded full-on outsourced help desk, that's where we're going to go into things that are like, what's around you? Where's your office? Where are your offices? What are a handful of things that people are going to know when they call in that you want our agents to know? And so we go really deep into that because we're seeing it from the customer perspective, and we're trying to fill all of those gaps so that we can truly represent our client, wear the logo, put the hat on. So that's
one thing that we've been called out for is that we call ourselves partners. We don't necessarily look at our clients as just a customer. We're not here to say, hey, this is our way of doing things. You must adhere to this. You are coming to us to buy our strict service. You have to follow our way. But rather, we're trying to meet each client in the middle to some extent, where we are becoming a partner to them. We are an extension. We are completely white labeled. So we are representatives of your company. We need to represent you well. And the only way for us to represent you well is to understand your business.
Yeah, I mean, that's paramount. I can't tell you the number of organizations over the years that have spoken with, even considered in some form or fashion, some of the previous businesses I've built, outsourcing and bringing on a team to support. And you could tell early on in the process of just the conversation with maybe even some of the founders that it was they looked at it more as a numbers game. It's right. You got to get to scale. You got a certain number of seats that you need to hit. You got your own profitability to worry about. And obviously, yes, that is absolutely important, paramount. But I think the ones that take the approach that it is kind of partnership first. It's about setting the right tone, the right experience. Those are the ones that ultimately end or lend itself to having, longer tail customers, right? You have less churn. You're probably scaling more effectively with those MSPs or with those customers. And so, I think that approach is absolutely the right approach, because I think that for a while, I think people are just looking at this industry and saying, all right, it's all about throwing bodies, right? And yeah, we'll get the quality, but day one, we just gotta answer the phone, and we'll kind of figure it out. But it sounds like you guys take a little bit different approach than kind of just scale to scale.
The
Absolutely.
reality. Go ahead, David.
No, I was gonna say, we care. I know that sounds cliche, but that's it. We care about the customer experience. We know what good looks like. We want to be able to take our clients, our partners, and say, hey, we're going to deliver this on your behalf, and it's going to be amazing, and it's going to help you grow. We're here to help. Sorry, it was early. We're here to do that for our clients because we've done it so successfully in the past. We just want to see the whole community be able to leverage that.
Yeah. And we know that if we have a tech, our tech is going to be 90% as good as your tech, because your tech has worked for your business for a decade. They're focused only on your clients. You're dealing with only a small subset of people. And our tech won't have that same experience. They'll have to deal with a slightly larger group of clients, because they have a group of clients to begin with. And so what that leads to is that sometimes we'll get feedback from our clients. Hey, we want your techs to be able to, improve in this area, improve in that area. And we're always trying to improve our techs. We're trying to train them. We're trying to upskill them. But the reason that we keep churn so low is that our clients understand that our techs are delivering that experience to their customers. So yeah, maybe that person could have handled the troubleshooting for this one odd issue that came up a little bit better, and we'd like to train our team on that. But the reality is that the caller didn't know that the experience was anything less than perfect, because in their mind, they were heard, they were addressed with urgency. The issue got resolved. The first tech, ideally they're able to solve it. Maybe the tech took 15 minutes to solve it when it should have taken 10 minutes to solve it. Or maybe it was something where after 5 minutes, they had to escalate it because they didn't have the access to the right tool. But whatever it was, they had the urgency when they were dealing with that caller, so that caller felt like, oh, I'm not just getting passed off. I'm not getting passed around. I'm not getting somebody who can't help me. I'm getting somebody who cares, who wants to help me, who's doing everything they can to figure out how to solve my problem. And our clients recognize that they get feedback from their clients about the value, the helpfulness of our team.
So how do you screen for, how do you hire for that? How do you screen for that in the interview process? Because I imagine, that's a hard thing to, it's a hard thing to get in anyone, but consistently get, out of staff. How do you, what's different about the hiring process that helps you guys identify the right people?
I'm going to jump in before David can start talking, because this is something we actually argue about. Not argue is not the right word, but should we prioritize technical skills or personal skills? And that's kind of the great debate. And obviously the answer is you need to prioritize both. But if you had to put one over the other, which comes first? If you get somebody who's a 10 out of 10 technically, but they're only a 6 out of 10 personality wise, versus somebody who's a 10 out of 10 in customer relations, but only a 6 out of 10 technically, which way do you go? And I won't even answer that question. I'll just turn it over to David.
To me, oh boy. All right. So I think that it's to the point of what Matt made earlier. It's about that experience. It's about being able to deliver the fundamentals. Somebody that's a 10 out of 10 personality wise, somebody that's a 10 out of 10 and, understanding the issue, delivering the fundamentals, giving the warm and fuzzies, doing all the things that they need to do, is the person that I would pick over the 10 out of 10 technical person. And is this the argument, Matt? Did we argue about that? We're on the same page on that for the most part, right?
We are on the same page about it. So I think one of the keys is that we're big on training. And this is one of David's big initiatives is having an LMS in place that really we upskill our team. And you can't really train on personal skills. You can to an extent, but really technical skills. If somebody has a curiosity and an interest to learn, the sky's the limit. They can learn everything. So when we are hiring for somebody, we do prioritize those personal skills, because the technical skills can be learned. David mentioned that we have a level of service that's technical live answer, where we're not necessarily doing much troubleshooting. We're triaging, assessing priority, and escalating. And that's a great starting point for somebody who maybe just got their computer science degree, just finished their CompTIA Network Plus, but doesn't really have much MSP experience. The first thing they need to do is learn how to ask the right questions, and then we can train them up on how to answer those questions once they've asked the right questions. But you can't really teach somebody how to be friendly and helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. I think I agree with you completely on that. It's you can't teach drive, initiative, and personality those are things they're inherent to an individual, and you can teach them the tech. So yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. So on the technical side of things, right? Because I imagine you're dealing with, obviously, so many different types of MSP, scale, size, tech stack, what have you. How much does tech stack play into partnering with you, or is that often a challenge up front, or is that something you guys have to think about?
We say that we're level 1 plus, and so everything that we're going to do is going to be considering level 1 as the baseline. When it comes to the tech stack, the MSP world has many, 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 many different tools, but the fundamentals, again, and I hate to keep going back to the fundamentals are the same, time tracking, note taking, things like that. And so, yeah, there is a learning curve when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'm using this new, ticketing system, this new PSA that we've never seen, but it's fleeting. Once the guys get in there, once they can poke around and, deliver their fundamentals and do what they would do for regular support, maybe the button's in a slightly different place, but they're still doing the same thing in each one of these systems.
Right.
And it goes to the idea of we try to be partners rather than just having customers, where we try to meet our partners in the middle. We do have levels of service where our agents aren't actively touching your systems at all, but where we are acting as that embedded help desk, it's as though you hired a new technician, except you're getting a team of technicians with Helpt. And if you hire a technician, you're going to say, hey, you got to work in my PSA. When you hire Helpt, you say, hey, you got to work in my PSA. If you're getting that embedded service, you're getting a team of technicians that's going to use your tools.
Yeah. And secret sauce, because I know this is coming, Kevin. The way we do that for agents is they're in a platform that allows them to switch between the tools really quickly. And so I'm looking at it right now on the left-hand side. I've got a bunch of icons. If I were to click on, Kevin's company icon, it would drop down to your PSA. It would drop down to your, maybe email filtering. It would drop down to your remote access tools. It would drop down to anything that you'd want us to be working in. And so the agents can click on that, start working. On the right side, there's a little knowledge base article that floats for them so they can see exactly what they need to do.
So maybe I'll ask you individually. So what's been the most challenging aspect of building this business over the last couple of years? You start with Matt.
Focus. When we first started, we had an idea. We had a concept of a plan, to keep it topical. And we knew that there was value in providing these technical services, and we wanted to figure out how to best define that. Originally, it was just Helpt, and now we've split it out into a couple different products. But having clear definitions of what exactly those are was a challenge. And then part of the challenge that we encounter is that when we tell somebody what we do, they come back to us and say, oh, can you also do this, that, and the other? And we want to say yes. We want to say yes to everything. We so badly. And for the first 6-8 months, it felt like we were saying yes to everything. But saying yes to everything isn't going to get us where we want to go in 3 to 5 years. And so we went through this phase early on where it was saying yes to everything to figure out how we could fit in, to figure out how we can add the most value. But then we hit a point where what we were doing was working. We knew there was value. We'd found that product market fit that every startup wants to achieve. And that is a sort of inflection point where we need to decide, okay, this is it. If we're going to change course, do something new, do something different, it's not going to be on the fly where somebody says, hey, can you do this? And we say yes, but rather it's going to be, hey, can you do this? That's a great idea. We're going to consider rolling this out as a new offering. We can't do it today, but stay tuned. Maybe it'll happen down the road. And in the meantime, we still think there's a lot of value in our core offerings to you. So that's kind of been a big shift that we're still working through. I mean, that's going to forever be a challenge because we get excited when new ideas and opportunities come up. We're the mad scientists there. But keeping that focus is what really helps us to grow and grow well. Oh, looks like we have a special guest.
Oh boy. Sorry.
How about you, David?
Yeah, I think I was thinking that whole time that Matt was talking. Sorry, Matt, I wasn't paying too much attention. How to best phrase this, but I think it's setting expectations. I think that when it's entrepreneur to entrepreneur, it's CEO to CEO, it's somebody who's got just as much skin in the game as you do. it becomes an interesting back and forth. Like, hey, we're going to be these customer experience delivery experts for you. And my understanding of that, my expectation of that might be different than, the one-man band out there or the 50 technician MSP. And so I think that it's really been key to us to dial in, like Matt said, focus in on what we're actually offering and figure out a way to say, these are the clear expectations. We're going to not only meet those, but we're going to exceed those. If you've got other expectations over here, we're going to do everything we can to accommodate, but we don't want that to be, looking bad on us if we're not able to meet those expectations. So I don't know if that was a great way to put it, but I think setting expectations has been pretty tough.
No, I think that setting the right expectations and being disciplined, because that is, and having seen it, advised companies, built my own companies, I understand the squirrel, and not necessarily the squirrel, but yeah, there are times when you get customers that come to you and there is a legitimate, potential opportunity to go down this path, and but ultimately, is that adding to the core value of the business? Is that adding to the fundamental margins? Is that going to help you scale more effectively, or is this going to be more of a distraction? I think too many businesses, too many entrepreneurs, CEOs, get distracted, especially early on, because it's hard. It's extremely hard, as you guys know, right? It's extremely hard to say no when you've got somebody that's maybe considering you versus somebody else. And well, if you could just do these couple other things, and if it's outside of the core, and that ends up being obviously a margin suck, time suck, and then it limits your ability to focus on, where you should be to scaling. So I think any business owner, watching this, or any MSP needs to be, thinking about that all the time, because it's easy in this world to be distracted and jump at opportunity, and the ones that stay focused are the ones that come out the other side with much higher multiples and better outcomes. And so that's kind of core fundamentals. So where's this business going, right? You guys have moved, ridiculously quick, right? You've got your growing customer list. You've got, high CSAT scores. You've got, raving fans on there. But, where do you see this going in the next couple of years? And how's this, how does this kind of world of, I'd call it kind of smart sourcing, outsourcing, what have you. But, how's this going to evolve in the next couple of years? And what are you going to do to kind of stay in front of it?
Well, I know Matt's going to say something about AI, so I'm going to jump in front of that. I think that, without getting too esoteric, there are a lot of people out there that still need the level of support that we're going to be able to provide as humans. And I think that as the divide in the capabilities of the generations that are coming below us, it's going to be more and more of a need. And so I see over the next couple of years us continuing to focus on delivering that great experience, and being able to increase who we're delivering that for, because there are some people that don't have those things first in mind. They're not thinking, hey, I need to deliver this type of experience, because maybe they didn't grow up with that type of experience. And so I think that we maybe this wasn't the 3 to 5 years, but down the road, we may be the ones that are kind of setting that standard.
So before I just say, AI, man, AI is crazy, I want to build on what David said. Is you think about your parent, your grandparent, who's going to be a little bit less tech savvy. They don't want to have to self-serve. They don't want to have to go find the FAQ. They want to call someone and get some help. And what we've actually seen, interestingly, is if you look at, generational metrics, is that, yes, older folks tend to be like that. And then our generation tends to be very self-serve oriented. They want to just find a solution, get help quickly. But interestingly, then the younger generation, the post-code generation, kind of swings back to the old-fashioned way of wanting human interaction to help them solve their issue, to minimize the frustration, to not have to problem solve for themselves, because there's so much that they need to problem solve for that they don't want one more thing on their plate. At least that's my speculation as to the psychology behind it. But what we've seen is that there's this younger generation that looks for that interaction to get the support, to get the help that they need. And so I think what we see is that our generation maybe isn't the long-term target audience, but it's not just the olds that are going to be retiring, dying off, whatever, that we're trying to support, but there's going to be this whole new generation that's going to similarly want this level of attention, of human, personalized, empathetic service that you can't get by just having all the questions on your website. But then I'm going to say, AI, man, AI is crazy. In 2024, it's wild what you can do. And we don't think AI is going to replace us. I think AI is a phenomenal tool. It's not that AI is going to take all of our jobs. It's that you have 5 people on a job and you might only need 1 or 2 because you now have AI to help you. It used to be that if you wanted to cut your grass, you couldn't, because you weren't going to go take a knife and cut every blade of grass. Then they started coming up with those little push mowers, not motorized at all, but had the little blades spinning in there, and you could just push up and down there. Then they started having the lawn mowers that were motorized and covered a bigger area and was less. And now you have these big riding mowers where you can cover tons of territory. And it's, AI is the next step in that. It's the next tool to improve your efficiency, your productivity.
Yeah.
At the same time, no matter how good the AI gets, the AI is not going to be empathetic the way a real human is. You can program it to do incredible things and give incredible answers. But when that person's frustrated, and you see it right now, is that if you're on the phone with a chat bot and you swear, it sends you to an agent because it knows that it's creating a negative customer experience, and it knows that a human is going to be the way to diffuse that situation. And that's what we're here to do. So we'll use AI to empower our agents. We talk about the floating knowledge base. What we're trying to do is make sure that when we have a caller on the phone who needs help, our agent can really focus on being empathetic with that caller and not need to think about where to go, what button to press, what system to log into, but rather have that information just kind of at their fingertips so they can focus on the caller. So AI is the tool that's going to let us be more and more valuable, be more and more helpful to each of the people that we're engaging with.
Well, for one, I'm glad to hear that we're all not going to be replaced by robots and cyborgs and all that stuff. But no, in all seriousness, I completely agree with your thought process there, because I do spend a lot of time, obviously, with dozens of MSPs every week, and then obviously dozens of vendors, service providers, and you can see this very clear commoditization happening, right? And the commoditization is because of just the number of just different technologies that are out there driving price points down, the competitive pressures between the vendors. But then also at the same time, AI is, to your point, it's extremely beneficial. It's creating a ton of efficiencies, right? But that's also going to drive, in the long term, it's going to drive margins down, right? It's going to drive profitability down because you got these two worlds colliding. You got the stack costs going down, and the barrier of entry for MSPs to get in is lowering. You got AI and other automation tools, making things more efficient, driving pricing down. And I think what's going to separate MSPs moving forward are the ones that actually have that real honest human interaction, right? That provide that level of service, because it's not just, in the future, it's not just, our stack versus your stack, and, and here's our price, there's their price. It's, what are the differentiations? How are you actually, helping that business? It's almost like getting into process reengineering, process improvement versus just being an MSP. And I think that's why I was kind of pushing you guys down that path, but understanding, like, when you're hiring people, you can hire the technician, you can automate the hell out of things, right? But what you can't replace is that human experience, where I think a lot of people are, that pendulum swinging back the other way now, saying, we've automated the hell out of things, right? To the point where it's beyond frustrating, and now we want that human interaction. And I think that's where, for you guys, it sounds like you kind of thinking through that process up front and how you're hiring, how you're structuring the business. But ultimately, that has to be an important reflection of that MSP moving forward. And so I know I went on a long ass tangent there, but yeah, that's
when you talk about commoditization, and the question becomes, how do you differentiate yourself? And hey, we're here sponsored by the M&A Roadshow, so let's talk about. I'm a mid-market MSP trying to compete with some conglomerate that's buying up a number of MSPs, then they're going to have the power of scale when it comes to their tool stack. So hey, there's somebody offering the exact services that I am at $20 per user per month less because of their scale. Why would anyone go with me? Well, once upon a time, maybe there was a differentiation in the stack and the skill set, but that's less and less the case. So you need somebody who wants to go with you as the MSP. And what that means is that you and all the people that representing you need to be the sort of people that your end customer wants to be working with. Your differentiator becomes that human element. And that's what we're providing.
For a long time.
That's awesome. Yeah.
There was a lot about that, like customer obsession, customer centric. Like if you go on LinkedIn, you see people talking about it, and it's going to continue, but it goes beyond that. It's got to be extreme at this point. You know, if it's A versus B, then A has to have some huge differentiator. If it's A versus A, then it has to be even bigger. So it has to be extreme customer obsession. It can't just be, hey, I'm taking care of my customers, I'm going to do what it takes. It has to be, I need to anticipate what it's going to take. I need to make sure that I'm in there and I know exactly what's going to be needed. And that's what we're hoping to help with.
Yeah. And look, and again, I don't, I'm not trying to sell on your behalf, right? Because we're an agnostic platform. But again, I completely believe in this model because of that. If you strike that right balance of, the speaking from the MSP's point of view, right? You're shifting the costs, from internal payroll, to an expense. So you've got obviously some savings there. At least that's kind of the theory behind the model. And then you've got the quality of service aspect of it, and you guys are leaning into that, and I think that's a winning formula moving forward.
You're hired.
Good deal. I mean, if this whole day job don't work out, I'm gonna end up calling you. But no, gentlemen, look, I appreciate where you guys are going, and I have a firm or full appreciation of kind of that CEO role, co-leadership role, and I know how challenging it can be, and it's I picked up on how you guys jab at each other in a very polite and fun way, and I think that's keep that up, because I know that helps keep it I don't know, fresh and a little bit less serious. So that's good on you guys for doing that.
Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah, all's good. So look, thanks for joining me this week. We'll have some links into the show notes. Definitely check these guys out. The site is gethelpt.com. Is that right?
Yeah.
GETHELPT.com. Gethelp.com.
Awesome. Great. Well, David, Matthew, appreciate you joining me, and we're rooting for you, and we'll see you out there.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
All right, gentlemen.